Senator Johnson, first of all, thank you so much for your leadership on this issue. You've been sounding the alarm on this crisis since the day it began. You mentioned the Flores settlement and the dangers that confront these hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied minors. H.R. 2, which passed the House last year, would have fixed the Flores settlement. It would have required the safe return of unaccompanied children back to their own homes and their own families. Why hasn't the Senate taken that bill up?
Because the Senate is right now under the majority rule of Democrats. And the last thing they want to do is fix this problem. Again, people need to understand, Democrats, Biden, Harris, they want an open border. They caused this problem. And by the way, I do appreciate you bringing back up the UACs and trying to be somewhat succinct. I completely left out some of the field hearings we've had with Senator Grassley with the HHS whistleblowers. You know, the New York Times article, 85,000 UACs turned over to HHS, completely unaccountable for, and that's a low number. I mean, we had a HHS whistleblower that said, again, this was a detailee into HHS. They were trying to handle this, and they were so frustrated in terms of the sponsors that they couldn't find or that seemed completely unqualified. I mean, sponsors with the addresses of storage units or you know, a sponsor sponsoring thousands of children. And she went to her supervisor, and the supervisor said, I think you need to understand we only get sued if we keep kids in our care too long. We don't get sued by traffickers. Are you clear? We don't get sued by traffickers. So the fact of the matter is, HHS is taking these kids, they've got to get rid of them within 20 days, and they are turning them over to sponsors that they know are operated by transnational criminal organizations that are sex trafficking, human trafficking, and they know that's going to happen, and they're doing it, and they're turning a blind eye toward it. And of course the media, except for the New York Times, I give them credit, a blind eye toward it as well.
This is completely incomprehensible to me. If a little waif showed up on your doorstep, the first thing you're going to do is get that little child back to its family and its home. You're not going to take that child 3 doors down to a crack house and drop them off there. And yet that is exactly what our government is doing, is it not?
Yes, and it's shameful.
When we abandoned Afghanistan, we released 5,000 most dangerous terrorists on the planet that were being held at Parowan Detention Facility. We know where one of those terrorists went. 10 days later, they went to the Abbey Gate at Kabul airport and detonated a bomb that killed 13 U.S. service members. We don't know where the other 5,000 are, do we?
Not to my knowledge, and what's even more egregious about that is they didn't have identification, and we just created identities for these people.
Is it conceivable that some of those 5,000 terrorists are among the 1.9 million known gotaways that we watched cross the border but couldn't intercept because the Border Patrol was completely overwhelmed taking names and changing diapers at the border?
Yeah, it's almost certainly that's the case. And understand, we've apprehended, we've encountered people on the terrorist watch list. Those are the ones we've apprehended. You know, the real bad people, I'm sure, take advantage of these surges of thousands of people at one border crossing, so you have nobody on the line, and they're going to be part of that known and unknown gotaway population. There's just no doubt that they're terrorists we've led in this country, members of transnational criminal organizations. It's just a ticking time bomb.
When we were at the Yuma border a year ago, we talked to a group of rank-and-file Border Patrol agents, and one thing I said is, look, we're the Congress. We can't enforce the laws. We write laws. So what laws do you need us to write? And unanimously they responded, we don't need new laws. We need to enforce the laws that we have. The chief of the Border Patrol told us at Eagle Pass that he says, I'm standing in front of an open fire hydrant with a bucket. I don't need more buckets. I need somebody to shut off the fire hydrant. Is this all, you know, President Trump proved that using existing law, he could secure the border. The laws didn't change on January 20th, 2021. The presidency changed. So is that ultimately in the hands of the American people, whether we're going to secure our border or not?
Again, the Supreme Court ruled the president, the current law exudes deference to the president. So he's got enormous power. Trump used it to secure the border. Biden used it to open it up. I would say that it would be nice to address the Flores settlement reinterpretation. I mean, Secretary Jay Johnson completely disagreed with that. It makes no sense. You can't detain a child with their family. That makes no sense. That could be fixed. We absolutely have to increase the credible fear standard. The standard ought to be, do you have a valid asylum claim or not?
HR 2 does.
It ought to be just that simple.
HR 2 does that too.
There are things that we could certainly strengthen, and we'd be happy to do that. But that's not what Democrats want to do. They basically want to codify this open border.
And as you pointed out, the Langford bill would have made it impossible, would have forbidden a president to take the actions that Trump did until illegal border crossings reached 4,000. At least 4,000 a day.
Yeah. Now, again, that's incomprehensible. You mentioned the border in Texas. I remember going down, I think this is before I became chairman in 2014, during the Obama's humanitarian crisis. And we were all singing the praises of CBP, who created this facility in McAllen, Texas. Because again, you have all these family units. You're really not sure. They weren't sure. Is this really the father? And so they separated within that unit in a very humane way. They had chain link fences and stuff. And we were all celebrating that. We were saying, singing the praises of CBP for, kind of going outside normal government rules and, responding to this crisis. Of course, a year or two later, under President Trump, that exact same facility with the exact same chain link fences all of a sudden was kids in cages. Again, a grotesque double standard.